sit down, please. Thank you all so very, very much for coming here tonight. Before we introduce you to our speakers, obviously we'll have a few heckles up as per usual. Please keep it somewhat respectful, but not too respectful, obviously. But you might be wondering, who is our tyrant tonight? Now, sadly, we did get rid of most of the aristocracy here in Ireland. That being said, we did find someone who was about as inbred as it gets, being from Wexford. Please welcome our very own Cillian Doyle.
They forced me to do this. All right. Hello, everybody. How are we? Thanks, everyone, for coming. Welcome to our French Revolution debate. Much awaited. We had to reschedule a couple of times, but we're here now. We're happy. Okay, so if you're here for the Anglo-Irish Treaty debate, you know how this works. But for everyone else, I'm going to go through a few rules, a rundown. Going to give a bit of context to the period. So I'm going to start with that. So this is the context piece. So the French Revolution began in the year 1789 after an age of enlightenment which swept across the continent. France, towards the end of the 18th century, was a country crippled with debt. All the while, King Louis XVI and his ministers maintained a high style of living. The political and financial situation in France forced Louis XVI to summon the Estates General, an archaic form of assembly which was last called in 1614. It consisted of 3 estates. The first estate was comprised of the clergy, the second consisted of the aristocracy, and the third was composed of everybody else, which was 80% of the population. The Estates General had the power to undertake reforms and attempt to solve the financial crisis. It opened on 5th of May 1789 in Versailles, marking the start of a shift towards revolution and outspoken political thought. An anecdote of the time quotes the following. Louis XVI opened the session, I suppose like I am now, with a speech in which he reviewed the circumstances that had led to the convocation and what he expected from the Estates General. As a peaceful king, he declared himself the people's greatest friend. In the Estates General, votes were held by estate rather than per head, which was unfairly weighed against the numerous members of the Third Estate. The Estates General eventually became the National Assembly, which then transitioned to votes per head. This was the first sign of a revolutionary movement. This assembly proceeded to publish influential documents such as the Constitution and the Declaration of the Rights of Man. These documents were characteristically liberal and typical of the zeitgeist with promises of equality and liberty. However, as McPhee writes, ever since 1789, the Assembly had to face a double challenge: how to preserve the revolution from its opponents, and whose revolution was it to be. The revolution first established a constitutional monarchy. However, as time went on, and with events including the storming of the Bastille, the March on Versailles, and the flight to Varennes, public opinion quickly turned against the idea of monarchy towards a school of Republican thought. After the flight to Varennes and the denouncing of the revolution by the king, he was suspended from his position. It is clear at this time that the Assembly is becoming divided over the issue of the crown. In September 1792, a national convention was formed which replaced the Legislative Assembly. This signified a complete transition from constitutional monarchy to a republic. Sutherland writes that in social terms, the convention represented a shift away from the serene world of the office holders, law courts, and academics which had characterized the public life of the provinces of the old regime towards the boisterous world of the clubs and administrations of the revolution. The overall composition of the Third Estate and the convention were broadly similar. The king was put on trial before the convention in December of 1792 for crimes of treason. This is where we find ourselves today, as members of this national convention. All you, today are members of this convention, voting on whether or not this house should execute the king. The arguments which will be put forward today will attempt to be historically accurate and comparable to arguments that could have been made at the time. We ask that you clear your conscience of all bias and place yourself in the shoes of a French revolutionary. Will you spare the life of Louis XVI or send him scampering to the guillotine? Okay, that's that. That's the historical bit done. Thank you. Secondly, just before I introduce the speakers, I'm going to quickly run through the rules. The speakers will speak for 6 to 7 minutes. I'm going to clap on the 6 minute just so they know when to wrap it up. There is no protected time, but there is also no POIs, so just keep that in mind. However, in history soft tradition, we have heckles, so come on. So we asked that you make use of the heckles. They worked really well for the Anglo-Irish Treaty. Everyone was a bit nervous at the start, but you get into them eventually. So pro-execution, obviously you want to kill the king. Here, shame. A la lantern, I learned today from Dulta, who's a French student. Seemingly hanging from the lamppost, so lovely. Tyrant, liberty, death to the king. Anti-execution, you want to keep the king. Here, shame, butchers, injustice, madness, and treason. So make use of those, but just, like Enzo said, be somewhat respectful. Let them finish their points. Let them speak. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce our speakers for tonight, who we're very grateful to have come in. On the proposition opening, we have Izzy Boylan, first year rep for the History Society Committee and first year History and English student. So, second member of the proposition will be Aisling Murphy, a second year Law and History student. And closing for the proposition will be Tom Conway, a third year History and English student and a famous radical. Opening for the opposition then, we have Dr. Declan Downey. Dr. Downey is the first Irish citizen to be elected to the Spanish Royal Academy of History since its foundation in 1733, while also having received recognition for his academic works from the Austrian and Japanese governments. He is the course coordinator for Law with History and assistant professor and lecturer in the School of History. We're very grateful for him to having joined us for this debate today. So please welcome Dr. Declan Downey. Joining Dr. Declan Downey is a final year Law and History student, chair of the Societies Council.
Shame.
Shame. I was asked to say that he's a committed Francophobe.
Here.
And also asked to mention that he was former Lawsock auditor. Shame. So can we please welcome Rob Brennan. And to complete the Law and History trio, we have Dara Sinnott, a third year Law and History student and secretary for the History Society Committee.
Here. Tyrant. Murderer.
So that's enough from me. Without further ado, I'd like to invite Aisling to speak first on the proposition side.
Citizens, deputies of the National Convention, seekers of justice. When this revolution began in 1789, there were high hopes that France could achieve peaceful transition from absolutism to a constitutional monarchy.
Here.
That door has been slammed shut in our faces. And why? Because of the crimes of Louis XVI and the consequences of those crimes.
Here.
The offences committed against the people of France are not accidents of circumstance, nor are they the results of some kind of misunderstanding. They are deliberate acts of betrayal, a reflection of the intent of a man who would have us still call him king.
Shame.
Once trusted by many in this very assembly, he has taken that trust and he has befouled it. Time and time again, he and his ministers have been given chances to prove themselves, and time again, they have failed.
Here.
Enough! We must not only recognize his crimes, but punish them accordingly.
Here. Tyrant.
This House and our Constitution, which I remind you, Louis himself sought to subvert, are founded upon the principles of liberté, égalité, et fraternité! Liberty of the people from the tyranny of absolute monarchy and the archaic composition of the ancien régime.
Hear, hear.
of which Louis himself was a figurehead.
Hear, hear. Tyrant.
Equality of the people before the law.
Death to the king.
And fraternity of all French citizens in a common cause of enlightenment and revolution. So let me ask you this. How can we stand here in these hallowed halls of justice and claim with conviction that we uphold those principles while allowing a man guilty of high treason to escape the penalty that the law demands?
Hear, hear. Hear,
And
hear.
not because crime is crime is crime.
Hear, hear. Hear, hear. Tyrant.
Three counts against Louis Capet. Not accusations, but legal charges substantiated by hard evidence.
Hear, hear.
And if he claims to be our equal, then let us treat him as such.
Hear,
Because
hear.
a common man
Hear, hear.
who conspires against the Republic would face the guillotine without question.
Liberty.
Tell me, what principles of justice allow an exception here? Some will say this man is no longer a threat, that he is no enemy of ours, that
Shame.
he is simply a shadow of the royalty. Then if that is so, let me ask you this. Why did he flee to Rennes? Why did he leave behind gripping denunciation of the very revolution he swore to uphold?
Hear, hear.
Why did he collude with his brother-in-law, the Holy Roman Emperor,
Shame.
who pledged to march upon this very nation with the emigre and restore the Bourbon throne?
Tyrant!
Hear, hear.
This is not speculation. It is evidence of conspiracy against the French people.
Hear, hear.
The divine right of kings, it is gone!
Hear,
The
hear.
sovereignty of the people, that is our new foundation!
Hear, hear.
And we lost sight of that so easily! So long as Louis Capet draws breath, he is not only an obstacle, but he is a threat!
Hear,
His
hear.
execution is not a matter of revenge, it is a necessity of the law!
Hear, hear.
It is the only verdict that ensures the survival of the revolution. The opposition, our good friends, would have you believe that these crimes are excusable, or at least
Shame.
not punishable by death. Members of this convention, France is at war, is it not?
Hear, hear.
Treason at wartime cannot be answered with exile or imprisonment. What nation allows a traitor to walk free and yet still expect to endure?
Shame.
Do not believe for a moment that clemency will bring stability. France is already at a boiling point. The extra-parliamentary clubs and societies cry out for justice.
Hear, hear.
The sans-culottes are
Richards.
restless. The people demand strength from this assembly, and if we fail them, they will take matters into their own hands.
Hear, hear.
If we do not act,
Hear, hear.
if we do not lead this revolution, we will be overtaken by this revolution.
Liberty.
We must show strength and be prudent for a purpose.
Hear, hear.
Death to the king!
Let me remind you of the massacre at Champ-de-Mars. Marquis de Lafayette and his National Guard, those who claim to be defenders of the revolution,
Shame.
fired upon our own citizens.
Shame.
And for what? For daring to speak the truth.
Hear, hear.
For calling it the lie that this convention has been slow to confront.
Hear, hear.
Those people were slain because they recognized before we did what must be done. Are we now to turn our backs to them as Louis Capet turned his back to us?
Hear, hear.
The revolution of 1789 is dead. A new dawn has broken, has it not?
Hear, hear.
This is a new revolution, a Republican one!
Hear, hear.
This man is guilty of crimes against the people,
Hear, hear.
against the nation,
Hear,
and
hear.
against the revolution!
Hear, hear.
The sentence is clear, the law is clear, and we must be clear!
Hear, hear.
Let us do our duty. Let us honor the will of the people. Let us act as the true representatives of France as we claim to be and pass the only just sentence. What is it? Death!
Hear, hear.
Thank you, Tashling, for that fiery opening. I'd now like to invite Declan Downey up to open it for the opposition.
Citizens of France, we have heard Madame Defarge scream at you. And what a marvellous dramatic performance she has given us. Hear, hear. I congratulate you. She has mentioned crimes of Louis Capet.
Tyrants!
Yet she has failed to tell us what exactly were those crimes. She has failed to tell us what evidence she has of such crimes. She talks about crimes against the Republic, yet the Republic did not exist at the time during which Louis Bourbon, not Capet, even the indictment is faulty, ladies and gentlemen. Everything he has done has been done in the parameters of the Constitution of 1791. Yes, he has always acted within the Constitution, including his right to exercise the veto over the outrageous impositions on liberty of conscience, which Monsieur Robespierre, the and his fellow bankster Freemasons in the Jacobin Party want to impose on liberty of conscience. That, ladies and gentlemen, is the only crime that these people talk about. Liberty of conscience and the defense of it, the royal veto, which Louis Bourbon exercised under the Constitution. Robespierre and Saint-Just declare that those who stormed the Tuileries on the 10th of August last year, led by that other brewer, bankster, Freemason, Antoine Santerre, expressed the will of the people to abolish the monarchy. Was there a referendum to sanction and verify this will of the people? No, ladies and gentlemen. It was the mob.
Liberty!
The mob, not the grande nation de France, not the great people of the country, not the city, the metropolis, and it wasn't even the decent citizens of Paris, the gutter snipes. Mob rule is what they want,
Liberty!
not that of the people of France. Just as the September massacres of innocent peoples, the work of this mob, goaded by Robespierre, Danton, and Saint-Just. Yes. The accusers say that they found an iron chest in the Tuileries, in which they claim to have found correspondence between Louis Bourbon and the enemies of France. Yet they cannot prove that these are genuine documents. The accused does not recognize his signature on them. Yet we know, ladies and gentlemen, that that great forger, Jules Condorcet, has been in the company of the accuser.
Liberty! Death to the king!
The king has never betrayed France.
Shame.
Or the French. Even his commands to the Swiss Guard on the 10th of May last was not to shed French blood.
Shame.
Yes, you mentioned the Champ de Mars, but the king's orders were not observed.
Shame.
Can he be held responsible for those who disobey his orders? No. We all know that this poor man is an innocent.
Tyrant!
He's an innocent. He may not be the most bright individual. But since when did weak-mindedness or idiocy merit the death penalty? Are we to allow this travesty of justice to take place? Are we to allow a precedent to be set whereby anyone who doesn't meet the high intellectual standards of Monsieur Robespierre can be executed? Oh, ladies and gentlemen, we face a serious cloud over this country if we allow this travesty to continue. If we allow this innocent man to be executed.
Tyrant.
It will be a dishonor upon France, but it will also herald for you a reign of terror. It will be Monsieur Robespierre, Madame de Forge, and Madame Danton who will decide your fate without evidence. I rest my case.
Shame. Shame.
Thanks to Dr. Downey for that great speech. I'd now like to invite Izzy up for the second round.
Citizens of the Convention, let us not deceive ourselves with illusions of sentiment. We stand at a crossroads between the Republic and the abyss of anarchy.
Hear, hear.
Between the promise of liberty and the spectre of tyranny reborn.
Hear, hear.
We did not come here today to pass judgment upon a man, but upon an institution.
Hear, hear.
An institution whose very nature is antithetical to the principles upon which we have founded our new France.
Hear, hear.
Louis XVI is no longer a king.
Hear, hear.
He is no longer a sovereign.
Hear, hear.
He is nothing but a man.
Hear, hear.
Yet so long as he breathes, monarchy itself endures. And so long as monarchy endures, the Republic remains in peril.
Hear, hear. Hear, hear.
Some among us once believed that a monarchy could be tempered, that a just balance might be struck between crown and constitution. I do not blame them, for I too once harbored such hopes, but history has been our cruel instructor.
Hear, hear.
It has taught us that kings do not yield power, they scheme to reclaim it.
Hear, hear.
It has taught us that thrones left empty call for pretenders, and it has taught us above all that a king in chains is still a king in the eyes of those who seek to restore him.
Hear, hear. Hear, hear.
Past revolutions should serve as a warning to us all. We must no longer allow the poisonous monarchy to strangle the flourishing republic as ivy does to a young birch. A monarchy once uprooted must not merely be cut down, it must be torn out, root and stem.
Hear, hear. Hear, hear.
Let us not speak of exile, for that would be no punishment at all, but an invitation to war. The emigres in Austria and Prussia sharpen their swords,
Hear, hear.
awaiting a standard behind which to rally.
Hear, hear.
If we send Louis beyond our borders, we do not rid ourselves of him, we deliver him into the hands of our enemies.
Hear, hear.
He will become the living emblem of the counter-revolution.
Tyrant.
A weapon for despots and tyrants who would see France shackled once more.
Hear, hear.
Nor let us speak of imprisonment, as though stone and iron could restrain an idea. Locked away in the darkest dungeon of Paris, he would still be called king by those who refuse to see the truth, that France has moved beyond kings and crowns.
Hear, hear.
His name would be whispered in plotting circles, inscribed upon the banners of rebels, invoked as a reason for foreign powers to march upon our soil.
Hear, hear.
Some claim that a trial should precede judgment. But what trial remains? Louis has already been tried, not by any mere courtroom, but by history itself.
Hear, hear.
The evidence has been laid before us.
Hear, hear.
His own actions stand as testimony to his crimes. His attempted flight to Varennes, his secret dealings with foreign powers, his refusal to accept the sovereignty of the people.
Hear, hear.
A trial is meant to determine guilt, but guilt has already been proven beyond question. The only matter left before us is sentencing. There are those who hesitate, who warn of the consequences of executing a king. They say his death will provoke turmoil, that it will deepen the divisions with our nation. To them I ask, what turmoil will be averted by his survival?
Hear, hear. Hear, hear.
What divisions will be healed by his continued existence?
Hear, hear.
If there is violence to come, it is not because we act, it is because we have waited too long.
Hear, hear.
If we falter now, if we allow fear to dictate our course, then we do not preserve the Republic. We do it to uncertainty, to endless instability, to the slow erosion of all we have built.
Hear, hear.
For if Louis Capet is spared, what then? Does anyone believe the enemies of the Republic will lay down their arms and go quietly into the night?
No!
Or will they see mercy as a weakness, hesitation as an invitation?
Hear, hear.
Will they not press forward with greater force, emboldened by the knowledge that we lacked the resolve to see this revolution through?
Hear, hear.
There is only one path that secures the Republic, only one judgment that ensures France's future. That is not vengeance, it is the law.
Hear, hear.
Treason in times of war demands the highest sentence.
Death!
If we deny it in this case, we do not show mercy, we show partiality. And partiality before the law is not justice, but hypocrisy.
Hear, hear.
A republic and a king cannot coexist.
Hear, hear. Hear, hear.
But more than that, a republic cannot survive without the confidence of its people. Let us not forget that we are but the custodians of this revolution, not its masters.
Hear, hear.
The people of France have placed their faith in us to uphold the principles we have sworn to defend.
Hear, hear.
They cry out for justice, not for cruelty, not for malice, but for certainty. And we must answer them.
Death to the king.
Shame.
If we wish to see France truly free, if we wish to prove that the sovereignty belongs not to the dynasty but to the people, then there is but one course of action before us. Let this be the moment where we sever the past so that the future may be born.
Hear, hear.
Let it be said that in this year of our republic, we ended not merely the reign of a monarch, but the very principle of monarchy itself.
Liberty.
Let justice be done, and vive la France!
Hear, hear.
Thank you, Dizzy, for that speech. A great speech.
Watch it, you.
My head's on the line. And now I'd invite Rob Grandin up to give the second speech for the opposition.
Votre Majesté, Mesdames et Messieurs, members of the National Convention,
Shame.
ladies and gentlemen, we, the opposition, stand before you here tonight with one clear goal. And that is to ensure that our revolution is not hijacked or manipulated to quench the bloodthirstiness of men like Tom Robespierre Conway. Ladies and gentlemen, before us we have a constitutional monarch that has acted constitutionally.
Tyrant.
The legal executive acted with his legal power to uphold the legal constitution of 1791. But as the proposition have told us many, many times this evening, they aim not to kill the man, but the idea of the king.
Liberty.
They speak of liberty. Thank you, Monsieur Robespierre. You speak of equality before the law. But if this is just one man, how can we say we are upholding the rule of law if we are flagrantly disregarding the values we claim to uphold?
Hear, hear.
They speak of upholding the law, enforcing the law. But the law is clear, ladies and gentlemen. We need not engage in abstract interpretation. The 1791 Constitution and all other laws are very clear. If the king was to be found guilty of the crimes of which he is accused, the clear punishment is exile. He is to be removed from his position. There is no precedent or principle in French law to suggest we could murder this man. And I use the term murder intentionally, for that is what this would be. Ladies and gentlemen, my argument before you tonight is one of public policy. And for the non-lawyers in the room, that means we look to the greater good. It is a very... We need to protect France. We need to protect these laws and principles which we claim to be so dear to us. We should go beyond not merely murdering this king, but perhaps maintaining a constitutional monarchy. They exclaim, liberté, égalité, fraternité. Ladies and gentlemen, it's mad. Before when it does not suit them, they cast their, values aside.
Shame.
Our most Christian king, the Rex Christianismus, has always put the people of France first. How quick they were to allow bloodlust and expediency to cast aside our values.
Hear, hear.
They speak of evidence, and yet the only proof they have for this evidence, which Dr. Downey has already debunked, was simply that they voted to say it was true. There isn't a shred of evidence to suggest that the king himself could possibly have penned such treasonous documents. But ladies and gentlemen, I ask you, what is the alternative? For when we consider a public policy argument, it is what happens to our people. What happens to the people we claim to represent? Monsieur Robespierre, he claims liberté. He claims to have the opinion of the people. But then why will he not allow us to put our question to the people? He is intentionally maintaining this debate between our four walls, which is why I plead with you to oppose the murder of our king. Ladies and gentlemen, from the times of the Roman Republic and the Greek states, we have seen how this idea of democracy goes. Look at across the Atlantic. A new idea of democracy in America. How long is that going to last? I put it to you, what could that possibly produce? Perchance an orange individual who declares war on his earth. Ladies and gentlemen, it is this new tyranny with a thin veil of legitimacy that the proposition argue for tonight. And what? We needn't ponder the hypotheticals, ladies and gentlemen. Look across the channel. For when they murdered Charles I, look to the chaos of the interregnum. Would Monsieur Robespierre style himself as a French Cromwell? Look to our Catholic brethren in Ireland. Would the fate of Drogheda befall Niamh? And in England they realised that this was a terrible idea and invited the king again. They invite bloodlust and war to France, ladies and gentlemen. So we should insist that this fanciful idea that they call a trial be ignored. This is clearly a thinly veiled power grab by someone who is a butcher.
Tyrant!
Yes. Do you scream tyrant, as was Agamemnon, the greatest, the king of kings? And we have our Rex Christianismus. So in the name of France, in the name of God, vive le roi et vive la France. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you to Rob for that interesting argument. 100% historically of the time period. Speculations. Now, I'd like to invite Tom Conway, Tom Robespierre Conway, some might call him. Close for the proposition.
Citizens and fellow deputies of the convention, as you have heard, many call me a madman, a radical. Some whisper that I am drunk on the spirit of revolution. But I tell you now, I do not revel in chaos. I fear it. I do not celebrate bloodshed. I seek to end it. Yet there is one terror greater than any that haunts my mind. It is the chaos of tyranny. The madness of monarchy, the anarchy of kings who believe themselves divine. Our enemies are not ghosts of the past, nor shadows in the dark. They are flesh and blood, swords drawn, boots trampling upon the soil of our republic. They're the enemies not just of France, but of liberty herself. They march against equality. They wage war upon justice. Look upon them, the Austrians, those inbred despots wrapped in silk and superstition, who rule not by merit but by accident of birth, clutching their prayer beads while they sharpen their bayonets. They are a rotting empire of crowned half-wits, held together only by arrogance and incest. The shall learn that our republic does not kneel. The Prussians, those brutes, who mistake discipline for intelligence and slavery for order, they are the watchdogs of tyranny, trained to bite at the command of any king who rattles a coin purse. They march not as free men, but as well-dressed cattle. The Prussians shall learn too that our republic does not kneel. And the British, the British, that nation of shopkeepers ruled by a mad Hanoverian fishmonger with delusions of grandeur, and the oh so contemptible British shall learn too that our republic does not kneel. These are our enemies, citizens. They do not march to challenge us, they march to erase us. They do not seek battle, they seek butchery. And they do so in the name of one man, Louis XVI. Shall we let them? Shall we let the crowned vermin of Europe feast upon our republic? Or shall we rise and show them that France bows to no king, kneels to no tyrant, and fears no enemy? Our enemies do not just lay within foreign lands. Our enemies of our revolution perhaps rest in this very room.
At the podium. Takes vermin to devour vermin.
There is weakness present in these men, weak of will and spirit. There are those in this hall who would quiver at the sight of royal blood, quiver at the thought of true freedom. These fools are allowing their own mercy to be the blade that kills our republic. It is their perfumed soft hands that will wring the neck of our republic. And what do they call mercy for? What do they call mercy for but this man? Now, let me agree, he is weak of mind, of course, but I do not see before me a man. Before me, I see a beast, a demon, and above all, a plague. He is a tyrant. He is a tyrant, and tyrants do not quietly die in a prison. They fester, they infect, and if we do not put a stop to this here, they will return. Do you leave a poisonous viper wander, or do you crush its head beneath your heel? The people did not storm the Bastille so that Louis XVI could sip wine in exile. The people did not march on Versailles so that he could rot in some comfortable cell. The people did not bleed so that some aristocrats in this hall could whimper about justice while the traitors sharpened their knives. While you whimper, the people cry for vengeance. And if this body of men is deaf to their cries, then the people will take justice into their own hands. Citizens, let us not waste another breath on this charade. Somehow, against all reason, against all justice, we are still here, listening to these perfumed apologists whimper about mercy and justice, as if monarchy hath ever shown either. Look at them, these defenders of the king, these trembling voices of hesitation. Do they not resemble the man they defend? Weak, indecisive, stammering their excuses while the blade perhaps hangs over their own heads. These men call for patience. Make sure they call for us to wait. How many times have we been told to wait? Wait, they said when we stormed the Bastille. Wait, they said when we abolished feudalism. Wait, they said when we ended the monarchy. And yet here we are, still waiting for you to grow a spine. I, for one, am done waiting. The people are done waiting. The Republic is done waiting. There is no room for sentiment. There is no room for hesitation. There is only the blade. So I say this, Louis XVI must die. And if there is any among you, any trembling, sniveling coward who would spare him, then let them stand now and declare their treason. Let them show the people where they stand, so that when the time comes, we know exactly whose name belongs next to his on that list.
Thanks to Tom for that rabble-rousing speech.
Anytime.
People question why we call him a radical. Now to close the debate and to close the case for the opposition, I'd like to invite Darius in it.
Fellow members of the National Convention, my fellow citizens, neglect or contempt of the rights of man are the sole cause of public calamities and of the corruption of governments. Law is the same for all, whether it protects or punishes, all citizens being equal in the eyes of the law. These fine words and noble principles are not my own, but quoted directly from the Declaration of Rights of Man and the Citizen, the foundational document on which our glorious republic has been founded. Indeed, in such a republic, the greatest honorary title which one may receive is that of citizen. At the mercy of this national convention sits our fellow citizen, Louis XVI.
Tyrant.
I hold no love in my heart for what this man stood for while enthroned as King of France. I have stood with you in the tennis court of Versailles and the streets of Paris to see an end to tyranny and absolute monarchy. Yet it is on those same republican values I stand before you today.
Shame.
Louis XVI is our fellow citizen, like it or not he is. And in these values for which we have fought, liberty, equality and fraternity, whatever is false during his reign of the repugnant system he represented, they are today irrelevant. Fellow members of the National Convention, there must be only one question on your mind. Is your fellow citizen guilty of treason against our republic? You must judge this. You must judge this on the facts alone without fear or favour. Louis XVI, as a fellow citizen before this assembly, enjoys a right to equality before the law. Woven throughout our revolutionary literature and the foundational documents of this new republic is the guarantee to a fair trial and the due course of law. Equally inherent in the promise of these rights is the idea they will be universally applied to each and every citizen. The life of your fellow citizen hangs in the balance.
Tyrant.
Death to the king.
I oppose the execution of the accused,
Shame.
as I feel the charges have been at best lacking solid evidence and at worst an outright abuse of law. Mr. Robespierre, you have said our republic will not kneel to foreign tyrants. Well, our principles will not kneel to you. This is not the will of the people, no, it's the fear of the people. We run the risk of turning this convention into a kangaroo court and making tyrants of ourselves. The prosecution has deemed the closing of the National Assembly by Citizen Capet tantamount to treason. At the time as king, there was no law to prevent him doing so. In fact, under the law, this was entirely legal. The Assembly cannot simply tyrannically invent a law which did not exist at the time and use it to justify a finding of guilt. Creating a new law and applying it retroactively, making a criminal of someone who at the time was acting legally, is the act of a tyrant. A draconian act, unbecoming of a National Convention of Revolutionary Republicans. If you may even call yourself Republicans. And you need not take it from me, but from one of the most prominent of our revolutionary brethren in America, Alexander Hamilton. I quote, "The creation of crimes after the commission of the fact, or in other words, the subjecting of men to punishment for things which when they were done were no breaches of law, has been in all ages the favourite and most formidable instrument of tyranny." Those in favour of the execution have laughably tried to place the blame for the tragic massacre at the Champ de Mars at the feet of Citizen Capet. In reality, the soldiers were not ordered to control the crowd by the king. No, the mayor of Paris imposed martial law. The inexcusable decision to fire on the crowd, inexcusable as it was on the authority of the officers in command.
Death to the king.
This act, although reprehensible, was not carried out on orders of the king. He is not blameworthy. These are but a few examples of the trumped-up charges laid at the feet of Citizen Capet. To execute a fellow citizen on such shoddy evidence would be an act of tyranny unbecoming of a revolutionary assembly. We have fought and bled to overthrow tyranny, and by God, I wash my hands of your attempt to reimpose it. This convention shall not be reduced to a sham court, a draconian organ, to which they are trying to carry out a politically motivated killing unrelated to justice. And I ask you, where does it stop, this descent into tyranny and bloodshed? Shall further tyrannical abuses of justice follow? Shall Louis XVI's young son follow him to the guillotine? Shall his wife be framed beginning all-out war? You may whoop, you may holler, but I ask you, who among us shall be safe from the guillotine's swift blade if we allow this perversion of justice to be committed in our name?
Liberty!
The natural, universal laws and rights of man demand we adhere to the principles of justice. And that demand is total, unavoidable, and insurmountable.
Shame!
Yet even if you believe the charges against Citizen Capet have been proven to a satisfactory standard, I must inform this National Convention that under the 1791 Constitution, the foundational and fundamental law of our state, this trial is by definition an illegal act.
Shame!
It has long been held a principle of proper legal systems, that those who enforce the law must obey it. My fellow citizens, I must inform you, in trying Citizen Capet, the National Convention acts in stark contravention to its own constitution.
Shame.
The 1791 Constitution, ratified by many of you, states the person of the king to be inviolable and sacred. And in a case such as this, our constitution states the abdication of the king will be sufficient punishment for his crime.
Shame.
The king has been duly stripped of his title, rightfully so. The man has suffered the punishment prescribed by law.
Shame! Death to the king!
This act would be unconstitutional, illegal, and fly in the face of the Republican values embodied in the Declaration of the Rights of Man and the Citizen. Do not allow the most notable act of our new republic thus far, an act which will be reported the world over, to be this National Convention, willfully ignoring its own most fundamental laws, through an illegal trial to murder its own citizen.
Tyrant!
Paris did not plead for this. We must prove ourselves above anarchy and lawlessness. France is a nation and not a rabble. I have stood before this assembly, not in defence of monarchy, aristocracy, or the rotten system we have overthrown in glorious revolution, but in defence of the principles on which that revolution was founded, to vindicate the rights of our fellow citizens.
Shame.
Those in favour of the execution have failed to fairly prove the guilt of the accused through an entirely illegal trial. If you vote tonight to condemn the prisoner, you have not voted in accordance with equality before the law, but through an arbitrary act of bloodthirsty revenge. Citizens, this convention and its verdict will show once and for all if the rights we have proclaimed to be universal truly apply for all.
Here.
For a revolutionary bled and for the rights they died in the hope of guaranteeing.
Here.
The evidence is void. They have failed to put it to the people. The trial is illegal. For justice, for the Constitution, and for the Republic, I beg you to oppose.
Awkward moment.
Okay, that was entertaining, to say the least. First, thanks again to everyone for coming, especially to our speakers, Dr. Downey, Rob, and Aisling, for coming and giving up their evening. All the rest of them were forced to be here, so just a round of applause for the speakers. The smell of pizza is wafting towards me, so I'm going to run through this very quickly. So we're going to have a vote on who you think won the debate, since you're all members of the convention, as I said at the start. Please vote on the merit of the debate and not your own ideas of the French Revolution. So I'm just going to quickly run through what the couple of the speakers said to give you a recap. Aisling, liberty, equality, fraternity. Crime is crime is crime, and really would like to kill me. Dr. Downey argued against mob rule, that Robespierre is the real tyrant, and I'm an idiot and weak of mind.
Here.
Izzy said that I'm nothing but a man. Warns us of the threat of keeping me alive. Points out that a republic and a king cannot coexist. Rob said that there was a hijack of the revolution by Tom Robespierre Conway. Argues for exile. Death to the king is a murder. Power to the people. Very impressive, Rob. And has a time machine. Tom does not revel in chaos. Inbred despots. We do not condone what Tom said. The Republic does not kneel. Accuse the opposition of whimpering. Dara closed the debate by quoting the Declaration of the Rights of Man. Argues the citizenship of Louis. Pleads the guarantee to a fair trial. Calls it a kangaroo court, a political trial, and an illegal trial. So that's the recap. So now, what will I pick? I think death to the king if you want death to the king. All right, he's scared of
Tyrants.
Okay, yay if you want death to the king, nay if you want to save the king. So if you want to kill the king, nay if you want to save the king. I think
Only in UCD.
I think today is
Only
the Thanks everyone for coming. There is wine and pizza outside, so if everyone wants to make their way out there and gather. Thank you again for coming.
I cannot believe it. Very good. Very good. Very good. I am perplexed.
Oh no, it was all in good spirit. Well done. Well done. That's impressive.
Fair performance, Tom, but you're never going to beat the game.